So they got settled in here, and Mariucci found a nice guy named Joe Santoro, fell in love with him, got married, and Angelina found this great guy named Mike Tommaso, and she fell in love with him. He got married, and now it's time for the other family to come over, and they got themselves finally over here about a year later, and all of them ended up in the same little house over near where the Frank was on Raleigh Street. They moved in this little house in back of them, and all of them were in that little house that right now is still there. And
wait. So how did they end up in that same house that the
Frank,
other where he was under the stairs?
He was that was the next street over.
I thought you said he was on Raleigh Street.
Raleigh Street, right?
So how was it they were in the house the next street over?
Yep.
Oh, so they were on another house on Raleigh Street.
Burbage Street.
Oh, you said Raleigh. Okay.
Raleigh Street is where Frank
was under the stairs,
right? And Antonetta and their family were on the house in on Herbert Street. So they're all in that house over there.
Right.
All right. And then Etta got some great jobs in the factory. And one of the people she met in the factory was somebody named Dora. I forget what her real name was, but they used to call her Dora, and they thought she was pretty simple. She wasn't complicated. And people were pretty nasty to her. But she got to be pretty friendly with her. People would call her Dumb Dora. My grandmother never called her Dumb Dora. But Dumb Dora is the lady that said to him, you know, you're very nice to me. I got to tell you something. My cousin's living with me underneath the steps of my uncle's house next door, because Dora was Johnny's daughter. She wasn't Felix's daughter. Felix had this.
So Dumb Dora was one of the beautiful girls.
No, the beautiful girls were there, her cousins.
But
the beautiful girls. This is Dora. Was Johnny? Remember Felix and Johnny moved to Raleigh Street?
Yeah.
Well, Dora was Johnny's kid.
But I thought Felix's kids had the.
This beautiful girls were Felix's kids.
Oh, okay.
Right. I'll tell you a story.
Johnny but Johnny was underneath the stairs.
No, my grandfather was underneath the stairs at Felix's house.
Oh, so.
And Johnny was across the street.
Oh, I'm confused. Okay.
Okay, so the two brothers moved to Raleigh Street.
Yeah.
They have two different houses. They're living in their two different houses. And Johnny, I don't know how many kids. He has a boy and a girl. The girl is named Dora.
Yeah.
And
Wait, who's Johnny now?
Johnny is, there was this guy in Italy that said he sent his son over here.
Right. To meet his cousin. To meet Felix.
That's his brother. That was Tom. That was Angelo's brother. So Angelo had two brothers and one sister, and the two brothers that came here were Giovanni, and Felix. They were here. They were living on Raleigh Street. You got them?
Yeah, they're brothers. Felix and John. Okay.
And when Angelo sent his son over here, he had to have somebody to stay with, so he sent his brother a letter sending my kid over there.
Oh, okay.
He's going to sleep underneath your stairs or someplace. He didn't.
So those were his cousins.
And they're all cousins.
Dora was his cousin.
Yep. So Dora would have been his cousin. That's Johnny's daughter.
Right.
And the beautiful girls would have been my
Dora's cousins as well.
That's right, and my grandfather's cousins, but
right.
they'd be living with Felix.
Right.
Now, Felix had the beautiful girls, but he also had Tom, which was his youngest son. And Tom became a priest, a Roman Catholic priest. We used to call him Father Tom. And he was definitely a renegade priest. He was a radical for his beard and all that. But anyhow, so that was his cousin. So here he is. So this girl named Dora, who maybe wasn't so dumb, was working with this lady named Etta, said, "You got to meet my cousin." Right? So they got together, and before you knew it, Etta wanted to get married like her sister Mariucci did, and like her sister Angelina. And
Mary Grace got married?
Mary Grace was still a little kid then.
Oh. I thought you just said she got married. Like,
there's two Marys. There's Mariucci. That's Maria. Mariucci means little Mary. And there is Mary Grace, who was the youngest of the bunch. The brothers were Pat and Tony. And what happened was so Frank met Etta, and before you knew it, those are the days when you wanted to have babies, you had to get married, and there was no birth control, and that was the way things were. So anyhow, they got married. The two of them. They met each other. They fell in love. And they decided that it would be better for them to be married. And in Felix's backyard, on Rowley Street, on a concrete bench, Etta and Frank got married. The bench is still there. Now, how do I know the bench is still there?
How do you know?
Because years go by, and I'm practicing medicine. This lady comes into the waiting room and says that she needs an appointment with Dr. Carnevale. And the girl said, Dr. Carnevale is not taking any new patients, sorry. And she has to take me. I'm his cousin. And I said, what's her name? Her name is Phyllis Pilkington. And I said, baloney. I know all my cousins, and Phyllis Pilkington is not one of my cousins. Sorry. Wrong person. And I told the girls that. She said, I insist. He is my cousin. So I said, what side? On the Carnevale side. My cousin. I called Rigooch. So I called my Uncle Henry.
Call Rigooch.
And I call Uncle Henry, this lady sitting in my waiting room. She says he's my cousin. I think she's making it up. What's her name? Phyllis Pilkington. Uncle Henry knows everything. Uncle Henry said, she's your cousin. How could she be my cousin? Well, she's Felix's daughter. Is she one of the beautiful girls? No, she's not one of the beautiful girls. She's the beautiful girl's sister. And the reason her name is Pilkington is she married this handsome guy who was a golf pro. One of the best golfers.
So she was one of the beautiful girls.
She's one of the beautiful girls' sisters.
I thought all the beautiful girls were they're all sisters.
There are two with the beautiful girls.
There was only two beautiful girls?
Yeah, there were four daughters.
Why are they calling them beautiful girls?
Because they were twins and they both were beautiful.
Okay.
And the sisters, Phyllis was the sister of the beautiful girls.
Do you have pictures of the beautiful girls?
I bet you Phyllis does.
Okay.
You gotta find the beautiful girls. Mary Ellen might have pictures of the beautiful girls, but I don't know.
She's still awake.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Anyhow, so those are the beautiful. So now we're gonna leave Eder and Frank sitting on the bench. The bench is still there, on Rowley Street, having just gotten married, and for playing their future.
And that's where they ended up living.
It's about 1925, 26. No, they ended up there. Not just yet.
What street would the nun live on?
She was living
with the chickens in the backyard
on Herbert Street then. But then as she got married, they couldn't live there because she's living with this guy, and there wasn't room for her family and this guy she's living with.
Right.
And her sister Mary moved out, and her sister Angela moved out. And the boys were still young then, although Tony may have been married by then. And so they had to go find a place to live someplace else. So they went up to Federal Hill, where all the Italian people were, and they got a place on Federal Street, where is where my father was born, on Federal Street, about a year or so later in 1927. Let's leave them for now. Let's let them figure out what they're going to do.
Okay.
Let's go back to Italy, though. There was this other couple that was, they were conniving people. They were pretty sneaky. And their names were Macaroni. And what they would do is they realized that in America, there's a lot of privileges you could have if you were born here. But there's not so many privileges if you come as an immigrant. So, I don't know how they ended up going to Providence. Got to work on that a little bit. Mom could probably tell you. My mother could probably tell you more than I do. But what ended up happening was there were 3 girls and 1 boy. And their mother and father. And they came over here with their sister, with their daughter, whose name was Julie. And while they were in this country, they came over when they were pregnant, when she was pregnant. She was pregnant with my grandfather. So they came over here, and while they were here, I don't know how they were here, with family or friends or something like that, but they wanted to make sure that my grandfather was born here. So he was born in the United States and became an American citizen. His sister Julia.
Oh, so he didn't have to go through all the.
Well, he was born here, so he became a naturalized citizen. His sister Julia, on the other hand, was born in Italy, which becomes part of the problem. So what happened? They stayed here for a while, and they had another daughter, and her name was.
Want to be on the map?
Yeah, it would be. I forget her name. Hang on, it'll come to me. So it's Peter's mother. Amelia, and Amelia was born here, and the little Latinina was born here, Lottie. So all three of them were born here, and then for some reason they went back to Italy. So they all went back to Italy, and they would go back and forth depending upon the economic sense of the time. I'd like to know more about that. I don't have a good sense about that. Something we could explore. My mother might know. My Aunt Doris wouldn't, but those would be the only two that would know. Maybe Johnny Falco, but I've tried Johnny Falco, and he hasn't been able to figure this one out yet. So you got these three girls and this one boy that go back and forth. One of them was born in the United States. No, three of them were born in the United States. One was born in Italy, and the one who was born in Italy is Julia. So now, Julia wanted to come back here because she could get better jobs here than she could in the United States. But she was an Italian. She wasn't an American.
She got sent back.
They all were back.
So where did they get sent back to?
Back to a town called Roccamonvino in Italy. Right? So they're sitting in this town of Roccamonvino in Italy. And they are...
And all their kids are in the United States?
No, everybody's in Italy.
Oh, everyone's in Italy. Oh, okay.
But time goes by and it's time for people to come here. And Julia wanted to come here. So what happened was... She got on the she pulled the Carrie and Jesse thing. She got on the boat and said her name was Amelia. So she came over here with her sister's passport, pretending she was her sister. And she came over because she thought she was going to come over for a short period of time. She came over as Amelia, even though Amelia was her sister, and she came over here. So Julia.
How did she do that? Amelia was so much younger.
No, they're both pretty much the same age.
Oh, really?
Not that much different. Probably pretty close to what you and your brothers and sisters are like. So she comes over here, right, and she's hanging out here, and she meets this handsome guy who's got a great job. He's the elevator operator for the Biltmore.
That's a great job.
His name is Carmelo Falco.
So why did they come here?
Why Falco came here? I'm not sure why he was here.
Why did...
So he came back here because they had a bunch of people from Roccamonvino here. Mayor Cianci's family came from that town. A whole bunch of people, the Bumanos came from. So a lot of people in this town came from Roccamonvino. So she's here in the United States. Her sister Amelia's back in Italy, and her sister and brother Lottie, Latinina, and Tony are there back in Italy. So she's over here and she's doing great. She married this guy. She's got a great apartment in Federal Hill. They're making money hand over fist. And Tony and Lottie hear about this, and they want to come over too. So they get on the boat. They come here, and Tony takes care of his sister Lottie the whole time. Amir, nothing doing. I'm going to stay in Italy, and I want to just meet somebody there and get married. And her mother and father stayed there too.
They stayed in Italy.
They didn't come over here. They just stayed there. They came every now and then for a visit, which we'll get to in that part of the story pretty soon, when she comes for a visit. Because that's big doing for you.
Okay.
That, when Amelia came for a visit with her mother and father over here for a visit. So anyhow, poor Julia's here with the name of Amelia. And she realizes that if she gets married to this guy, she has to use the name Amelia. Because if she uses the name Julia, they'll ship her back to Italy. Because she's an illegal. But she's here as an illegal, posing as Amelia, your sister. It gets to be complicated. So Tony and Lottie come here, and she doesn't treat them real well. She's busy with her things. She got a new best friend. Her best friend is named Etta. And Etta just got married to a guy named Carnevale, and they're hanging out there having a great time, right? Meanwhile, her sister and her brother are basically...
Wait, what did you just say?
You think that's an important thing? Yeah. Julia is here right? Meets.
Yeah.
She's now posing as Amelia.
Yeah.
And her best friend is Etta Carnevale, who used to be Etta Rossi. They worked in the factory together. They're such a good friend that Etta had a baby, and she needed the godmother, so she asked Julia to be her godmother. The baby's godmother.
So they're just friends.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Julia is now the godfather of Antonetta's first son, who was born in 1927, whose name is Etta's Carnevale.
Etta, the nun.
Yeah. Her first son
is Angelo.
And who's his godmother?
Grandma's
Julia Falco.
Who is Grandma's what?
Brother's sister. Grandma's father's sister. You get it?
Okay.
You're following this now?
It's confusing.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to make it clear.
That's
you can
weird.
play the tape back and say it again. So she asks her friend Julia, whose name is Amelia, but nobody's calling her Amelia or Julia. They call her Laudette, Little Laura.
Why?
Because I guess that was her middle name, and that's what they'd use. But we don't know. In fact, I asked her son, what was her mother's first name? What was his mother's first name? And I looked at recently at Tom Boudreau's a funeral thing that they had. So I asked Johnny. I said, Johnny, what was your mother's name? And she goes, I don't know.
Wait, is that Johnny with the ponytail?
No, Johnny with the he's bald and he's my mother's cousin, Johnny Falco.
Right, the one with the ponytail.
He's not a ponytail.
Who's the guy with the ponytail and the daughter I used to play soccer with?
That's my cousin.
Hey.
Okay, so Johnny, I asked Johnny, I said, listen, how did your mother, what was your mother's name? He said, there's a problem. And then when he went to school, it was another problem because the teachers would ask him, what's your mother's name? And he would say, I have to go to the bathroom. And he doesn't know what his mother's first name was because she was born Julia. She was in this country as Amelia, and everybody called her Laudette.
Huh.
So we went to Aunt Laudette's house, and we was dealing with Johnny Falco's, and she married the guy Carmino who worked in the elevator at the Biltmore.
Okay.
And had a great job.
So so that's the oldest sister.
Yeah.
And then next to the oldest sister is who?
My grandpa.
Who's
and then
what's
his
his
sister
name?
Amelia, Tony.
So there's Tony. Okay.
And right.
Wow, that's small. That's crazy.
Okay. So they're hanging out
And how
doing
did
all
they
this
meet?
stuff.
How did Julia become the godmother to your father?
Because she worked in the factory with this new girl from new Italian girl named Etta Carnevale, who just got married, and she was having a baby, and they became friendly, and she became the godmother to that kid, Angelo. Okay, now you see those two stories together. Okay, now seems like there's one other family that we haven't talked about, which is a very